Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste friends. Team Param Vedanta welcomes you all to DISHA 44, a new series of an inward journey to discover our inner strength and happiness through Bhagavad Gita. Today, we will commence the study of chapter 10, known as Vibhuti Yoga. We are going to take up verses from 1 to 3 of this chapter. Dr. Komal Prasad sir will explain to us these verses along with the Tattvabodha topic of Bhakti. After the talk, we will have the teaching quiz session. Before Dr. Hegde sir gives us introduction to the day's topic, Srimati Shamala Shetty will explain the shloka of the day. We all are experts in deciding which flower to worship to which deity. But have we thought any time which flower the God really likes and would want us to worship with? Shamala is going to tell us about this Ashta Pushpa Manasa Puja, 8 flowers God wants us to worship with. You decide on which flower to pick after listen to Shamala. Shamala, please.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sarvam Vishnumayam Jagat, says the Vedas. When everything is filled with Vishnu, what can we offer him? The only thing he seeks is our heart, which should yearn for him. Somebody asked Lord Vishnu, what type of flowers do you like to be offered to you? Then Mahavishnu says, Ahimsa prathamam pushpam, pushpam indriya nigraha, sarvabhuta daya pushpam, kshama pushpam visheshataha, jnanam pushpam tapah pushpam, shanti pushpam tathaivacha, satyam ashtavidham pushpoh, Vishno pritikaram bhave. Next slide, please. Ahimsa. Non-violence is the first pushpam to be offered at the feet of the Lord. As long as violence exists, there is separation. So, not to hurt others, including all living beings. Non-violence should be practiced at the level of thoughts, words, and deeds. The second flower, Pushpam Indriya Nigraha, sense control. If we let our senses and mind drag our intellect, we cannot focus on Sri Vishnu. In Yoga Vasishtham, Sri Rama says that trying to satisfy the mind of its desires is like trying to fill a sieve with water. It can never be done. Next time, when you overcome a craving and establish yourself to a higher purpose, then this offering will be pleased by Vishnu. Third one is Sarvabhuta Daya Pushpam. Daya, compassion towards all beings. Fourth flower is Kshama, forgiveness. Kshama Pushpam Visheshataha. This flower is special. When you forgive someone, you are doing a favor to yourself. The sense of relief that truly overcomes you when you forgive someone from your heart. The peace that descends is the proof that Sri Vishnu is specially pleased. The fifth flower is Jnanam Pushpam, knowledge of the self and not worldly knowledge. This is an offering. Sixth flower is Tapah Pushpam, austerities, penance, by way of adhering to principles of dharma at every step in life. We should strive to overcome mundane life and strive to reach the state of divinity. Seventh flower is Shanti, peace. Peace arises when we realize that all things happen by God's will. Our Hegde sir often says, keep Lord Krishna as your driver so you can sit peacefully in the back seat. Eighth flower is Satyam Ashtavidam Pushpam. Truth. Truth is Sri Vishnu himself. Only with truth we can get auspiciousness, which leads us to bliss that is beautiful. Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. It is the final flower offering to Vishnu. By offering these 8 flowers, Vishnu will be indeed happy. Vishnu Preetikaram Bhavet. Let us try to offer at least one daily. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Thank you very much, Shamala, for introducing a nice poem, a nice prayer on Vishnu to us. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. We are in the path of Jnana Yoga. We have chosen this path. The first question I would like all of us, both listeners and those of us who are getting these classes, is this an easy path or is it a difficult path? One thing is very clear, this is not an easy path. It is an extremely difficult path. But yet we have chosen this difficult path because we know one thing, that this is the highest that anybody can possibly attain. And as we know, this is the highest path that we can attain. We are working on this path. Why is this path so difficult? If a person is in the path of Jnana Yoga, there is a certain prerequisite called Jnana Yogyata. That means I should have a certain amount of eligibility. And what is that eligibility? It is not too much, but a certain amount of viveka. This person has a discrimination between what is permanent, what is impermanent. A certain amount of vairagya, a certain amount of discipline called Shama Adi Shakta Sampatti, which includes Shraddha, Titiksha, Shama, Dhamma, Uparama, and so on. But more than all these qualifications, one very important qualification required in the path of Jnana Yoga is Tīvra Mumukshutvam. The students in the path of Jnana Yoga should have that burning desire that I want it and I'm going to take it at any cost whatsoever. So in addition to Tīvra Mumukshutvam and a certain amount of Jnana Yogyata, one thing we should be blessed is with a certain acharya, a teacher who is not an ordinary teacher, but who is a Shrotriya Brahmanishta. Not only one who has the ability to communicate the scriptures, but one who is established. You can see in him the scriptures. You can see in him or her that conviction of the teaching, and the teaching radiates in that acharya. In that famous verse, Vidyate Hridaya Granthi, Chidyante Sarva Samshaya. This is one of the qualifications that the teacher, as far as the teacher is concerned, the teacher has absolutely no doubt. There is not a single iota of doubt. There is no samshaya in the mind of the teacher. Why do we call this path as the highest path possible? I remember a certain story of a certain Sufi saint, where a group of his followers were coming from one oasis, crossing a bad desert to another. As they reached the new place, they were looking for some place where they can get some food. Unfortunately, there was a very rich person who was hosting a banquet, and without any qualms, they approached there hoping to get some food. The host was welcoming all the guests, and when he saw a group of strangers, he looked at the leader and said, "But we don't know who you are." Without a spurt, without a thought, he replied, "But I know myself." And then he replied, mainly to himself, "How unfortunate it would be if the whole world knew me, but I did not know myself." It is very nice if the whole world knows us. If there is some accomplishment we have had and everybody acknowledges us, it is very nice. But more important than people know me is, do I know myself? That is what we are studying in these classes in the Bhagavad Gita, particularly when we go into DISHA. We are looking into deeper insights. And when we come into the 10th chapter, And in fact, the whole of this Shatkam is about the nature of God. And soon we will see that the nature of God is not different from my true nature. And therefore, I need to be very clear about my nature. And until this is achieved, as Swami Vivekananda had said, arise, awake, and stop not until your goal is reached. Now, what is our goal? Is moksha our goal? So we are clear in the path of Jnana Yoga. But as we get along the path, we have to be very clear, what is our goal? Is moksha our goal? And the more we enter the path and the more we interact with the teachers, we come into a shocking revelation that moksha is not a sadhyam, is not a goal. But at some stage along the path, the teachers introduce moksha is a siddha vastu. Moksha is our intrinsic nature. We are already that. But because of a certain cloud of ignorance, because of Maya, I'm not able to experience my limitlessness, my infinite nature. And therefore, although I am already that, I find myself struggling as a very limited human being. And therefore, although my path is Jnana Yoga, that I need to know myself, there are certain sadhanas that I need to be doing. As we're all busy people and spiritual sadhana requires certain time, there is some sort of shortcuts that we can adopt. First important shortcut is there is nothing clearly demarcated as secular and nothing demarcated as religious. It is not that in my prayer room, I'm religious, spiritual, meditative, and once I come out of that, I am materialistic. In this path, we realize it does not matter what I do, when, where, how. Any action that I do from now on will be an action of Īśvara Arpana Bhava, Īśvara Prasada Bhava. The more we become sensitive to this particular chapter, from now on, this is a preparation for Vishwarupa Īśvara Darshana. The whole world, including the ground beneath my feet, is none other than Bhagavan himself. And therefore, I have a greater sense of devotion or bhakti. And the more we realize that the single greatest enemy in the path of Jnana Yoga is the ego of feeling that I am into the path of Jnana, I am knowledgeable. And even knowledge can become a path, a block in my path. Finally, as I said, this is the difficult path. This is an arduous path. And being an arduous path, all we can do is the first of these three. There's a certain triad in the success of the seeker for Jnana Yoga. The triad that the student of Jnana Yoga should be aware of is called Prayatnam, Kalam, Daivam. Prayatnam, Kalam, Daivam. Of this, only 1/3 is in my hand. Prayatnam, consistent and systematic effort in that direction of getting self-knowledge. So through Shravanam, through Mananam, through Nidityasanam, through Jnana Yogyata, this is my Prayatnam. How long will it take? That is not in my hands. I have to be ready for whatever time it requires. And if for some reason I'm not able to fulfill in my life, I know there is something called a Yoga Brashta. I have a kickstart from the next life. And the third and very important is, am I available for Daivam? Because we can move from tamas to rajas to sattva, but from sattva to gunatita, that jump is possible only through grace. And that's why, as I said, only 1/3 or less than 1/3 is our efforts, and we need to be working on it. Today's Disha will be presented by Dr. Komal Prasad on Vibhuti Yoga. Simultaneously, we will have more inputs on Bhakti, because I see Bhakti is so important to be able to see divinity in the Vibhuti or in the glory of Lord. Dr. Komal, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We are dealing with chapter 10. We are starting chapter 10, introduction and about the glory of God. And further, as Agnes just introduced, we will be starting to talk about Bhakti, devotion to God. So in our spiritual journey, which Sir was just mentioning about, so what are the topics we see in the spiritual journey? In our spiritual journey, Swamiji says, Swami Paramarthananda divides into 6 divisions, 6 angles in which we explore ourselves and the universe around us. The first one thing to study will be the nature of Jiva. And second one is about the Jagat, the universe around us. And the third is Īśvara, God. And the further 3 are what to do and how to connect these 3, Jiva, Jagat, Īśvara. And what is that samsara which binds us together, the bandha? That's the 4th thing which we need to see. The 5th will be, if that is binding us in this world, then how to get liberated. That is moksha. What is the goal? Sir said, that's moksha, to be liberated. Then once we know the goal, we need to know the sadhana, how we reach there. So these are the 6 aspects to study in our spiritual journey. We have started, we are in 21st century, our upbringing are varied, our childhood, our belief systems, we come from various different backgrounds. As we start becoming adults and our rational thinking sets in, it's not unusual to think that what is this God? Is it something which we need to believe in when everything is possible in my own capacity? What is God now? So we keep hearing 2 terms when we study our scriptural literature. One is astika and one is nastika. So generally, astika means what? Astika, generally we believe that the person who believes in God, and nastika is somebody who is a non-believer. In a way, it's correct, but if you go to the roots, astika means who believes in existence. Asti is existence. So one who believes in existence is astika. Existence of what? Existence as a noun, as it is, as a satyam, the matter, the ultimate principle. We can take it that way. Or in the intermediate step, we can take it as one who believes in existence of a higher principle, which we generally call as God or Īśvara. There is also a place for non-believers of existence of God in our Vedic literature. That is, they are called Nastikas. So when we study our scriptures, the belief system is based on Vedas, Veda as Pramana. One who believes in existence of the proof of Vedas, Vedas as Pramana, those are called Astikas. And those schools of thought which do not believe Vedas as a Pramana are considered as Nastikas. That's why when we say the 6 classical darshanas, that is Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Purvamimamsa, Uttaramimamsa, here there is a scope to have some schools of thought which does not believe in God. But we have to remember they believe in Veda as Pramana. Nastika darshanas are those which do not believe in Veda as a Pramana, as a proof. That there comes Buddhism and Jainism. So this is the background to have a definition of Īśvara or God. As Sir was telling about the subtle difference between secular and religious. So this is where, because our Vedic scriptures are so open to logic, and which will fit to everybody's existence, even in this century and for centuries to come, is because it takes not just scriptures as scriptures, but there is a scope to include our logic, and it should conform to our experience in day-to-day life. So this is the background about how we come about exploring into God and ourselves. In the 10th chapter is an extension of the Madhyama Shataka. That is Sri Krishna has already introduced the subject matter, that is about the nature of God. That's the subject matter of the middle 6 chapters. 10th chapter is called Vibhuti Yoga. Here we see in a stepladder fashion, we are taken through 3 different levels of understanding the nature of God, Īśvara svarūpam. The first, as the God who creates the world, who is the creator, as an intelligent principle who creates the world, like how a carpenter creates a furniture, a table out of wood. And then the second will be, the next level is to consider God as a world, as a manifestation of God. That's God becomes the world. And as we go further, the next step, the ultimate step will be to understand that God appears as the world, and it's not that once it is a mithyatva which shows up, which projects as this world, and truly speaking, the substratum God is different from what is seen in this world. This is where the subtle difference between the need for Veda as pramana comes. Our pramanas are based on our 5 senses, which we are aware of. Is there anything beyond what can be perceived through our 5 senses, or the extension of that, like telescope, microscope, spectacles, radio waves, all this? Is there anything beyond these 5 aspects to the world around us? Astikas believe there is something else to explore, something dark matter, which is beyond the capacity of our 5 senses to perceive. Whereas the Nastika Shastras, as well as science, believes that there is no such thing which can be beyond the perceptibility of our 5 senses. That's the difference. So by opening up the possibility of a Apaurusheya aspect of the world around us, which is not perceivable by our 5 senses, Astika is open to explore much more. It's like the second world around us, which is not perceivable. The science is just hitting there. When they go to quantum mechanics, when they go to dark matter, they say that it's not something which is not perceivable, but we are sure that there's something there called dark matter, dark energy, which is not detectable by any of the mechanisms, instruments, which is available at present. So this is the background about God and about seeing Vibhuti Yoga, that is to see God when he manifests as the world around us. And Sri Krishna starts explaining Arjuna in the first verse. For a change here, Arjuna does not ask a question. Bhagavan himself will volunteer to go further, because this is an important aspect which needs to be reinforced, which is called abhyasa. Otherwise, in generally the scriptural literature, if anything is repeated, it comes as a dosha. Whereas only when Bhagavan feels, when the author feels that there is a need to reinforce that thought, only then it will be repeated. Bhagavan here feels a need because it's such an important topic that it needs to be revised. 7th and 9th chapter, already he has explained about Īśvara svarūpam. Shri Bhagavan uvacha bhuya eva mahabaho shrunu me paramam vacha yatteham priyamanaya vakshami hitakamyaya. The Lord said, O Arjuna, once again, may you listen to my supreme words, which I, wishing your welfare, shall tell you who are delighted. Meaning, like he says, once again, because it's already said in 7th and 9th chapters, and we have already gone through that. So for a change, I will also start with questions to revise ourselves as we go after these 3 initial verses. The second verse go like this: Name viduhu suragana prabhavam na maharshya aham ardihi devanam mahashinam cha sarveshaha. Neither the gods nor the sages, great sages, know my origin, because I am the origin of the gods and the great sages in all aspects. So that's why he says, so it's a kind of revelation that we believe that people, the great sages and gods, are beyond our intellectual capacity to comprehend, and they must be knowing this great truth. But Bhagavan is very clear to say that because even they are created by himself, the Lord, even they do not get it inbuilt in their systems. It needs to be fed later. So they learned it later, but it's not by in that origin when Brahmaji came out, this gnana was not known to him. So gods, neither the gods nor great sages know my origin. In the next verse, Yomam Jamanandi Chadveti Loka Maheshwaram Asamudham Samriteshu Sarva Papai Pramuchate. Among the mortals, this is sudden change. He was talking about great sages and gods. He says in the next verse that among mortals, the discriminative ones who knows me to be birthless, causeless, and the great Lord of the universe, they become freed from all of their sins. That's amazing, because just now he said the hierarchy, what we generally assume, is totally shattered, because he says on the one hand, gods and great sages may not be knowing this. They will not be knowing this as default. But it's possible for an ordinary mortal, a grihastha like Arjuna, if he develops a discriminative mind, he can know the great Lord Bhagavan to be birthless, causeless, and the great Lord of the universe, and he becomes freed of all his sins. So this is amazing possibility which the God has given to us. The Lord Krishna is telling us that it's possible for us, if there's a way to know the birthlessness, the causeless cause of the great Lord, all our sins will dissipate, and that will lead us to moksha, liberation, ultimate liberation. So I will start with the revision questions. Don't think quiz is started. Quiz will again come in the end. So this first question, it's goes like this: whether God is inside the world or world is inside the God. This is the question. So it requires some thinking. If I give you another example, a simple example, it will be easy for you to answer. Is syrup, the sugar syrup, is it in the jamun, or is jamun within the syrup? It's very easy to answer now that both appear correct. The answer is both is correct. God is in the world is technically called Vibhuti Yoga, the subject matter of the 10th chapter. When we consider world is in the God, that the jamun is within the syrup, that is Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga. We have to appreciate both. To take another example of water and waves, if we see water within the waves, it is Īśvara Mahima, that is Vibhuti Yoga. If we see all the waves within water, it's called Vishwarupa Darshana. So many technical terms, and they will have a connotation. Most of our common terms which we see, which we have learned from our childhood, we know very clear. Whenever we say water or jamun, immediately we remember what it is. So there's a direct connection between the word and its meaning. That's why I have the corresponding words I have put in corresponding colors. So this is one test which is called Stroop test, which we do in our neurological examination. So this is the next question for you. You will have to name the color of the words. Mind you, you have to name the color of the words, not what is written there. Green, red, blue, purple, red, purple. They are written in different color. But when you try to read it aloud, we fumble, because what is written and what the color it is incongruent. Green is written in red. Red is written in green, blue is written in purple. So we fumble. because our mind associates these two together, the name as well as what it means. This is very important in our inquiry of God, because when we see something, when we see a cow and say that, when we imagine that image of the cow within, we can't separate. The beauty is we will never think about it, but just think for a moment, can we demonetize the word with its meaning? Never possible. This is what Kalidasa, the Kaviratna, uses to start his first verse in Raghuvansha. Vaghartha viva samprukto vagartham pratipatyate jagatah pitaro vande Parvati Parameshwara. Like Parvati and Parameshwara, the word and its meaning can never be separated. That's the difficulty which we had when we tried to dissect out the color from its actual meaning. So if we say cow, if we say from tomorrow onwards, cow does not mean that animal. It's not possible. That's how close in the word and its meaning is attached together. These are the two aspects of every object we see around us. And these two aspects of everything around us is otherwise called para and apara. The para is the consciousness, the Chetana Tattva. And apara is matter, Achetana Tattva. And a combination of both of this is the cause of this universe. Jagat Karanam, Īśvara. Īśvara is otherwise a combination of Paratattva and Aparatattva, consciousness and matter, Chetana and Achetana, like word and its meaning, like Ardhanarishvara. It's impossible to separate them from each other. It requires some thinking, introspection, manana to understand this. Now in the slide you can see there are some things which are common for both para and apara prakritis, and there are something which are different. What is common between para and apara? Both are anadi. They are beginningless, and both cannot be created new. It's like law of conservation of energy or matter. They cannot be created. It's there, always, beginningless principles. Both Chetana and Achetana. And para prakriti is not subject to change, whereas apara prakriti is savikara, subject to change. Para is nirguna, no attributes or properties. Saguna is full of attributes. Para is satyam, swatantra, whereas apara is mithya, maya, paratantra. Okay, it is dependent. That's the dependent entity in this Ardhanarishvara. So this is the summary. So cause of the universe is Īśvara, or Īśvara is otherwise the cause of the universe, Jagat Karanam. And there's three levels of understanding this. The first one is to consider Bhagavan as Nimitta Karanam, like a goldsmith using gold to create a jewel. He is the intelligent principle who creates this world. That's the first level, easy to comprehend and understand. In the second level, which is the subject matter of this 10th chapter, is to consider Bhagavan becomes the world. Whatever we see around us, because think about Ardhanarishvara. Even you see a water bottle, you see a person, you see a cow. There are two aspects to it. Everything is this Ardhanarishvara, para and apara. Both are there. And when we see the world around us, and it occurs to us that these two elements, these two primordial cause is within any entity what we see around us, that's when we see everything as a vibhuti, the glory of the Lord. Bhagavan becomes the world. That's the upadana karanam. If syrup just becomes the jamun, then what will remain outside? So that's the substratum. The syrup is also there in the bowl, right? So beyond the jamun and the syrup within it, there is something outside it, which we generally miss out. And that is the third aspect, which is Bhagavan appears as the world. Adhishtana karanam. It's the vivarta upadana karanam. That's the third aspect. You are seeing in this slide a little vivid. As you can see here, what attracts in the slide is this left side of the picture, Para and Apara Prakriti, the colorful world around us, which our senses gets attracted. What is there to the right side? The blackness around that, which we can consider separately. But here you see the Ardhanarishvara, it is not possible to separate and understand unless you intellectually think. But whereas this other part, the larger part of the slide, the dark matter which you see, will come much later. Okay, that's beyond Īśvara. What is that? Beyond Kshetra and Kshetragna. We'll see in future chapters. That's the subject matter of 15th chapter. That's the Purushottama Yoga. We'll come to that much later. So for now, we are dealing with the second level of understanding of Bhagavan, as the world around us is Bhagavan himself, Upadana Karan. Lot of bhakti gets flows out of us when we see this Ardhanarishvara. We keep listening, we keep hearing this term bhakti. Sometimes when we have done a mistake, we feel like that kind of fear. So one thing we have to keep in mind is whenever in the spiritual journey, there is nothing which will make you weak, nothing which will make you smaller. Everything is something which will give you strength. In every thought will make you stronger. Sometimes we feel it when we say we have to be humble, humility. What is humility? Humility is the strength to see the greatness in the other person. Each one of these words we'll have to consider, which will boost our inner energy, inner strength. That's the motive of DISHA, right? So when we say bhakti, you need not become a small person. We are something beyond, and I am such a small person, and God is so overwhelmingly big. Bhakti is something which will infuse that strength in you to reach the God and become one with him. So bhakti is, otherwise we can consider as devotion towards God. And what is devotion? Devotion is love directed towards a higher principle. There is no fear there. And not even, respect is a lame word to call. It's love. Devotion is nothing but a love directed towards a higher principle. Call it a higher principle for the time being. Whether you call it God or higher principle, it's all the same. Whenever love is directed towards some principle which we revere, which is sacred, that love is called devotion. When we dissect out again love, why do we love something? I will give you an example of TV and remote. You're sitting on a sofa and you have a remote somewhere hidden, as it usually happens. What will you search for first? The means to switch on the TV, right? So your love is directed towards the TV remote. Till what time? Till you find it. Once you find it, your object of interest will be the TV. Okay, that's the end. So there are three levels of reverence or bhakti. That is bhakti, or the love for the means, love for the end. And there's a third aspect of love. Other than the TV remote and the TV, why are you doing this? The means and end are directed towards making yourself happy. Yourself is the third aspect of that love which you can direct towards. That's the highest, and that's the actual true love which we all crave for, is a love towards our own self. That's the highest level of love can be towards our own self. Okay? And whatever we do, the means and the ends are just intermediary steps before we actually realize it's actually we ourselves which we need that attention and love. So the means, end, and the self. So these are the three levels. So of the three, the means love is the lowermost. And then comes the end love, Madhyama. The Uttama is actually the love towards your own self. Similarly, here in devotion also it comes when we take God as our object of interest, object of study. It can be considering the God as a means. Dear God, please make this exam good. Let the question paper be easy. So you want the God to be a person who is the intermediary, who is the means to make the exam easy for you. Whereas your end is you are passing in examination. In the next level, we'll be seeing God as the end. Okay, God, just take me to your footsteps. Enough is enough. My life is over. I will come to you. Please take me. That's God as the end. That's the intermediary step. But still further is God as your own self. That's where we are reaching further as we proceed from chapter to chapter here. So this is in brief about Bhakti and the first meaning of Bhakti. There are further stages which we will see in the subsequent classes. Thank you very much. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Komal. That was a very nice DISHA. A lot of inputs for us to think both along Bhakti as well as to be able to see the divine as the vibhuti of the Lord with very nice examples. We are now in the second Shatkam of the Gita, where we have a completely new set of topics to be focused on. And what are the topics that we are looking? Chapter after chapter is speaking to us in more detail about the nature of God. Once we have some idea about the nature of God, we have to progress spiritually. I spoke to you in the introduction that success is possible only through three things: Prayatnam, Kalam, and Daivam. From now on, everything happens, including this interaction. I am speaking, you are listening, you're able to understand. Now, this is possible because of the grace of the Lord, and it is the God's grace that makes everything happen. In order to achieve all this, are there certain sadhanas? The sadhana or the objective is the second aspect Dr. Komal spoke is about Bhakti. And for Bhakti, is there a sadhana? That sadhana is called Upasana. In our mind, Manasa Japa. I meditate on Shri Ram Jai Ram. Manasa Puja, like Shiva Manasa Puja. I imagine I'm doing a mental puja or even a Manasa Parayanam. We are studying the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. If I have studied the verses, I just read the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. That becomes mentally now. Mentally, recitation becomes Manasa Parayana, which is called Upasana Yoga. Quickly, let us look into next slide, please. How we come into the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And this is how Shri Krishna is introducing. Suddenly you see the shift in the whole topic, where in the beginning of the 7th chapter, Shri Krishna does not wait for any question from Arjuna. On his own, he says, I will introduce to you very clearly. Please listen. Next slide, please. So he says, Tat Shrunu, please listen. Mam Nyas Yasi. I will let you know some grammar completely about my true nature. But for that, Maya Sakti Manaha. I want your mind to be focused. Yogam Yunjam Madashraya. You will have to surrender to me. And he said, Asamshaya, without any doubt, Mam Nya Yasi. You will get to know me completely. Next slide, please. And the next one, Shri Krishna continues. He says, the next one, please. He says, Aham Bhakshyami, I will tell you. Idam Jnanam, this knowledge along with Vijnanam. Not only knowledge, I will give you the wisdom about it completely, Asheshataha. And he says, Yet Jnatva, getting this knowledge about my true nature, Iha, in this world, Bhuyaha Anyat. There is nothing more worth gaining. That means if you listen properly and get to know my true nature, you would have got to know the highest worth. Next one, please. So this is the next slide. This is the introduction to the Mundaka Upanishad, where Shaunaka, the student, comes to the teacher, Angirasa, and asks with a lot of devotion, Kasminnu Bhagavo Vijñate Sarvam Idam Vijñatam Bhavati Iti. O Bhagavan, O my Lord, please tell me what is that knowing which everything worth knowing. That is why I said we are in the path of Jnana Yoga. We are here to learn something that is really worth knowing, because it can transform the outlook. It can be a liberating knowledge. Okay, this is the introduction to the 9th chapter. You will see how Sri Krishna introduces you the idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyami anasuyave. Please do not be critical, but I will tell you. Jnanam, what kind of jnanam? Guhyatamam, the greatest secret. Not only jnanam, vijnanam sahita. Yet jnatva moksha se ashubha. Once you have this higher knowledge, and this knowledge which I'm going to share about the higher nature of an individual, which is also the higher nature of the Lord, you will be free from everything that is ashubhat. You will be free from anything inauspicious or all forms of suffering. So therefore, Sri Krishna now very methodically helps us to understand God in 3 levels. It is easy to see with God with form, that is Eka Rupa. Now from this chapter onwards, we are trying to see God as the world. And the stepping stone is this particular chapter, Vibhuti Yoga, where we will see the gems in the world as bringing our attention to the Lord. And finally, we need to be able to understand the highest form of God is beyond any form. It is called Arupa. So the first form is Jagat Karta Īśvara, where God is the creator, as explained already. Nimitta Karanam, the intelligent creator who has all the knowledge, who has all the powers to create this world. And because I do not see the creator around, I imagine that there is a creator. And when this is an imaginary creator, I see him not directly, he must be there somewhere. And that knowledge of God is paroksha. Paroksha means distant. Subsequently, the question for any rational person is, God has to create the world, and in the beginning there was nothing but God himself. Other than God, there was nothing else. There was no creation. With what did he create the world? Now he would have to create from himself. Now, if this understanding is very clear, this is called Jagat Karanam Īśvara, or Īśvara is the cause of the world. And this is the seed for the understanding to be able to see the whole world as God, Vishwarupa Īśvara. Now, what do I need to be able to see God? I just need to open my eyes, and whatever I see is none other than God. And if I don't want to use the word God, I can call it Vishwarupa Īśvara, or God as the world. Finally, next one, please. And this is given again in Mundaka, Yathorna Nabi Shridate Grinnatecha. How the spider example is given. Initially, I did not, God was paroksha. There was no God. And suddenly you realize God is from nowhere. God is now here. And if you will see, these words are, if you just have to separate the word no, no becomes now. And this is the sudden transformation that knowledge can begin. And these knowledge verses, one of the most important verses to meditate on, Sri Krishna says, Mattaha parataram nanyat kinchid asti dhananjaya. See, I am the creator of the world, but there is no creator for me. I am the causeless cause of the entire world. I have been there from the very beginning. So I am the beginningless principle who is also the creator of the world. Mattaha parataram na anyat kinchid asti dhananjaya. My sarvam idam protam sutre manigana eva. I pervade this world in a very imperceptible manner. And this we have to understand with 2 words. I am both immanent and transcendental. I am in and through, but at the same time, I am beyond. And when we come into the world of the Upanishads, we understand as all that I see with my eyes open is the existent God as existence or Sat. And when I close my eyes and I begin to think of who is the one who is able to listen, who is the one who knows everything, I become perceptible to the consciousness within. And later we will realize that the existence outside is not apart from the consciousness. So that's where we are coming to So God is a combination of both consciousness and matter, and that's where our quiz will come, that the common features are, what are the common features? Both are beginningless, both are anadi, both together form Īśvara or the Lord. And then there are so many differences. One is nirguna, the other is full of attributes. One is chetana, the other is achetana. One is savikara, that means it undergoes modification. The other does not undergo any modification. So in this chapter that we are going to listen to, what is the significance of the world? Vibhuti. Vibhuti is the ability to be able to see God in the world. Whereas Vishwarupa Īśvara Darshana is the ability to see the whole world in God, or the whole world as the body of God. Vibhuti Yoga is a stepping stone to Arupa Īśvara, which is the highest. And therefore, this stepping stone is a very important step. That is why it is okay to spend a lot of time on Vishwarupa Īśvara Darshana before we come to an understanding of Īśvara as beyond form. If this has to happen, we have to work on strong dislikes. I hate this, I can't stand this, because what are we talking about? We're talking about everything is none other than Īśvara. And therefore, the more I see this world, objects, persons, even situations as Īśvara, then there is no dislike or there is no hate. So I think we have come to the conclusion. This is a gift for all of us. The gift that Arjuna has given us is just this. He says, my Lord, you say that you are the whole world, but it becomes difficult for me to imagine, to conceive, to meditate upon. Can you give us a few symbols? And these are the symbols that we will treasure on, and we will be able to log on, to be able to see rasoham apsu kaunteya, to be able to appreciate the taste in the water, to be able to appreciate the sound, the pranava, and so on, and be able to see the glories of the Lord. Once this is clear, we will be able to answer a few questions, and we will have a teaching quiz which will be conducted by Venkatesh Prasad. Venkatesh Prasad, please.
Thank you, sir. Friends, Dr. Hegde sir and Dr. Komal sir has given a complete subject matter of this Vibhuti Yoga as well as the first meaning of Bhakti. Now, just let us cement our understanding of what we have heard from them through this question answer session. Next slide, sir. This first block is the introduction to Vibhuti Yoga. Question 1. What is the common feature between consciousness principle para prakriti and matter principle apara prakriti? Just now, Dr. Hegde sir told about this. Mr. Shivkumar will be helping me in answering these questions.
Both are without a beginning.
Exactly. Right. Both are beginningless, anadi. And one more reason that one more commonality that Komal sir gave is they cannot be created again. There is another commonality. Next question, sir. Name a few differences between consciousness and matter principle.
Consciousness is nirvikaram, without form, whereas matter is savikaram. Consciousness is independent. Matter is dependent. Consciousness is satyam. Matter is mithya.
Thank you.
Consciousness is changeless, whereas matter is subject to change.
Thank you, sir. Perfect. Next question, sir. Consciousness and matter principle together is called, we have got the options here, Maya, Īśvara or Jiva, Brahman, and all of the above.
Īśvara?
Yes, sir. Īśvara and Jiva. Depending on the situation, it is Īśvara or Jiva. Next, sir. When God himself manifests as the universe, then God himself is available as nature, idol in a temple, wealth, creation.
Creation, of course.
Perfect, sir. Creation, it is in the form of creation. God is manifesting in the form of creation. Next slide, sir. Based on one's maturity, God is seen differently. Fill in the blanks. First level, God dash the world. second level, and third level?
From the talk, first God creates the world, then God becomes the world, then God is the ultimate support of the world.
Exactly. Perfect, sir. Komal sir explained about this at length. When first our understanding will be the God has created, then he becomes the world, upadana karanam. Then it is he dharayati, dharyate. That is the creates, becomes, and substract. Next question, sir. Pick the correct statements. God creates the world, God becomes the world, and God appears as the world.
All are correct.
Perfect, sir. Perfect. First, as I told earlier, first he creates, then he manifests, and then he appears as the world. Thank you. Next question, sir. Vibhuti Yoga refers to which level of explanation? God creates the world, God becomes the world, and God appears as the world. In which Vibhuti Yoga refers to which part of this?
It is God becomes the world, no?
Exactly. God becomes the world. That is upadana, parinami upadana karanam. When he creates the world, it is nimitta karanam. When he appears as the world, it is vivarta upadana karanam. God has become the world, parinami upadana karanam. Next question, sir. Pick the correct statement. God is in the world, world is in the God. Just remember the example of Jamun and the...
Both are correct.
Both are correct.
Thank you.
God is in the world is Vibhuti Yoga. World is in God is Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga. Appreciate both. See the water in the waves, Īśvara, Mahima, and Vibhuti. See all the waves in the water, Vishwarupa Darshana. Next question, sir. What is the benefit of knowing the Lord's Vibhutis? I can know how many gods are there. I can choose which one to worship. I can understand how powerful God is, and I can become humble.
It is to make ourselves humble.
Yes, by knowing Lord's Vibhutis, we naturally become humble. Vibhuti Yoga will keep me humble. There is no jealousy, enmity, etc. as everything in the Lord's Vibhuti and the glory. Next, sir. What is the subject matter of this chapter? It is the various avatars or various Vibhuti or various creations or various manifestations.
The nature of God.
Pardon me, sir? It is various manifestations of God. Īśvara svarūpam gnanam or Īśvara vibhuti gnanam. Just like Hegdesa said, Arjuna asked Krishna, just give me some symbol. The whole world, I cannot just perceive total world as you. So give me some symbols. That is what Krishna is doing in this chapter. Various manifestations. Next question, sir. Now the questions will be based on the 3 shlokas, verses, first to third. Sarvam Vishnumayam Jagat. The verse 1 is Bhuya eva mahabaho shrunume paramam vachaha. So now what is the meaning of paramam vachaha? Supreme words. Higher lokas, uttama gunas, nishkama karmas, and nature of God. Which is that supreme words in this?
Nature of God.
Nature of God. That is the subject matter of this chapter. Īśvara svarūpam gnanam or Īśvara vibhuti gnanam. Next question, sir. Name vidus suragana prabhavam na maharshayaha. Ahamadihi devanam maharshinam cha sarvashaha. Me prabhavam means what? Is it my glory? Is it my power? Is it my origin? Or all the 3?
Sorry, sir. Pass.
It is all the above. It includes my glory. It includes the power and the manifest and the origin. All the 3. All of the above. Next, sir. Again, same shloka. Na vidus suraganaha na maharshayaha. Neither the gods nor the great sages know my origin. Why? They are born later. They have not listened to Bhagavad Gita. They are shrouded by ego. I am their creator. Why do they not know?
Because God is the creator.
God is the creator. Perfectly. Since God is the creator, since Krishna says, Ahameva Adihi, I am their creator. I am not only the Nimitta Karanam, I am also Upadana Karanam. It is not that I create them. I myself manifest as those people. Next, sir. Asammudha samartyeshu sarva papaihi pramuchyate. Saha martyeshu asammudha means he is the great bhakta, he is the most intelligent person, he is the greatest fool among human beings. None of these.
He is the greatest intelligent person.
Most intelligent person. He is the most intelligent, wisest person. Asammudha. Mudha means a fool. Sammudha means a big fool. Asammudha means wise person. Mamajam anadim. Loka Maheshwaram. Krishna says the intelligent people, Asammudha, know him as what? Birthless beginning, less cause of the universe, not the cause of the universe, separate from the universe, none of the above.
Of course, a birthless, beginningless cause of the universe.
Perfect. Birthless, beginningless cause of the universe. Ajam Anadim. Again, Asammudha samartyeshu sarva papaihi pramuchyate. What benefits does an intelligent or discriminative person gets? Does he become wealthy, or he gets name and fame? He will conquer, or he becomes liberated. Which is the benefit?
He becomes liberated, moksha.
Perfect, sir. Sarva papaihi pramuchyate. That is what he means here. Sarva papaihi pramuchyate. From all the papas and all the samsara, he becomes liberated. Next, sir. Who knows the origin of universe? Gods, great sages, discriminative mortals, and scientists.
Discriminative.
Krishna says in the shloka, Name viduhu suraganaha. So gods and great sages are eliminated. Scientists will not come into this picture in this RAM. So it is discriminative mortals. Name viduhu suraganaha in the 10.2. Neither the gods nor the sages know my origin. In 10.3 it says, Mamajam anadim chaveti loka maheshwaram. Among the mortals, that's discriminative ones who knows me to be birthless, causeless. And the great Lord of universe becomes freed from all sins. Next questions. Now we'll go to Tattva Bodha questions. The first one is, Bhakti has many meanings. What is the first meaning of Bhakti? Goals we want to accomplish, means we use to achieve goals, self-love and devotion to God.
Of course, devotion.
Devotion to God. We have heard a lot of things about devotion. The first meaning of Bhakti is devotion to God. Devotion is love directed towards a higher principle. And then, sir, I think we come to the last question of this quiz. With the one word, fill up all these things. First meaning of Bhakti is Bhakti as in dash towards God. Dash is nothing but a love directed towards a higher principle. Whenever love is directed towards some principle which we revere, which is sacred, that love is called reverential love, can be called as. Same slide, Komal sir had put up this slide earlier.
And this is connected to the previous question, devotion.
Exactly, the continuation of previous question. The first meaning of Bhakti is devotion to God. Devotion fills all the gaps here. First meaning is devotion. Deva Bhakti is devotion God. Devotion is the revered directed towards a higher principle. Again, love directed towards higher principle and a reverential love. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shivkumar. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Komal sir, for a very exciting session, and Dr. Hegde sir for a very interesting introduction and discussion. Thank you, Shamla, for a beautiful shloka time. And thank you, friends, for your participation and valuable feedback. Let us log in for our verse by verse session 132 on 3rd February 2023 to continue with the 18th chapter. Please log in at 6:45 p.m. sharp Friday. Thank you. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.